Rachel Zegler has been making waves on social media and in Hollywood in general for all the wrong reasons. She is currently one of the most hated actresses in Hollywood, but there is a big new rumor circulating that Disney is actually moving to trim her from the Snow White screen time in order to avoid more controversy. I have a few things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, follow me on social media, and consider supporting through Patreon or via YouTube memberships. Now, I have had to talk a lot on this channel about Rachel Zegler, and I am definitely not a fan of hers. I think that she is a mediocre actress who really shouldn't have been picked to play the part of Snow White, and she has definitely reaffirmed the reasons why we do not like her. She is very egotistical. She's never really cared about the Disney princesses or Snow White specifically, but now that Disney has seen all of the controversy surrounding her and the general dislike for her, it sounds like they're looking to cut her at least a little bit from this movie. This is a Bounding Into Comics article that I wanted to reference. It says, according to the latest whistles on the digital streets, in hoping to undo at least some of the damage done by star Rachel Zegler's very public denigration of the film's source material, Disney is currently moving to trim her Snow White screen time by adding in a new subplot focused specifically on the princess's childhood. Now, I have said this multiple times, there is nothing they could do that could get away from all of the controversy that she has created and the creatives surrounding this project have created. They would have to completely scrap this version of the movie and restart from square one, which they are clearly not going to do. We have heard that this film allegedly has a $300 million budget, and that continued to skyrocket as they had to do reshoots, and they had to do story changes, and they had to add in different, CGI effects that they were not planning to do. And to top it all off, they delayed this movie by a whole year because of the backlash. I mean, it was supposed to release in March 2024, and they moved it to March 2025 in a desperate attempt to get people to almost forget that either she's in this movie or to let some of the backlash die down, which most certainly isn't going to happen. And yeah, the only way I see them getting out of this situation is them either completely scrapping it and restarting from square one or shelving it completely, which of course they're not going to do either of those. And this is just a rumor, so take it with a grain of salt, but it does come from an editor at WDW Pro, and they have had quite a few, public scoops that they've released that have ended up being true, but of course it is still a rumor. I don't necessarily think that Disney would go into it now and completely, reshoot maybe even a quarter of the movie to try to add in this subplot, unless we actually had heard falsely that this movie was basically done filming, which could have been the case, but it says, per information first relayed to him by an alleged insider source, in light of Zegler's star fading among audiences thanks to her aforementioned history of trashing every aspect of Disney's original animated take on Snow White, the House of Mouse is presently working to soften the public's perception of the princess's live-action incarnation. She actually did not create so much controversy when she was doing all of the press touring for the Hunger Games, which was a little bit surprising to a lot of us. It definitely seemed like they were like, hey, you really need to be careful with what you say. And I feel like a lot of the statements she made about Snow White was long before she actually had a big PR team telling her exactly what to do. But that just means that those things that she said a year and a half ago video were the truth. That's just how she felt. And now, of course, she's tried to damage control, saying, I actually love everything Disney's ever done. I love Snow White, even though we've previously gotten that conflicting statement from her where she said she thought the prince was a weirdo and a creep and a stalker, and she wasn't really a fan of Snow White growing up. She had only ever watched it once before she got hired because she just didn't like it. Like, we are hearing such conflicting things from her, and that is why they cannot save this movie with her in it. There's just no way a childhood subplot is going to either be long enough, because let's be honest, they could maybe do a fourth of the movie like that, and then people would be like, so when does the story actually start? Or they would have to do flashbacks, and nobody likes movies where there's constantly flashbacks crammed into them. It says, though, the idea is to cut time out of her performance, show Snow White as a cute little kid, and soften the character with flashbacks and or major origin story portions at the beginning of the film, like I just said. Of course, edits have not begun for these scenes as we believe they're not shot yet, so things could change. Yeah, I don't necessarily know if they would do this because they've already spent hundreds of millions of dollars on this movie, and that means that they need this movie to make, like, at this point with the $300 million budget, like $650 million easily to even start making a profit. So they probably want it to make like 750 to 800, which is on par for some of the other live action adaptations they've done. Like Aladdin made over $1 billion, Beauty and the Beast made over $1 billion, Cinderella did not get quite that high, but it was the first one that ended up making about 800 million. So they're looking at those, hoping that those are going to be, you know, on par with what this will make, but I think it's going to be closer to the live action Little Mermaid, another movie that faced major controversy that only made $550 million, and it did not even make a profit for Disney. I think that is what they are looking at, and now they're realizing, oh no, what are we gonna do? I mean, we have also heard that behind the scenes there have been, you know, crisis meetings surrounding this movie, the creatives and higher ups at Disney execs trying to get together and figure out ways to either fix Rachel Zegler's image or how to edit this movie differently, how to just win fans back. And I just don't really see that happening. I mean, I grew up watching the Disney princess films. I absolutely love so many of them. And Snow White is another that so many people grew up watching and absolutely love. And when you have an actress who is just blatantly disrespecting that source material and that original iteration of the Disney princess, it's just not going to go over well, and you're not going to get those people. Like, no matter what they do at this point, I am not going to monetarily support this movie. I am not going to go purchase a ticket. That could also mean that they end up trying to shove it onto Disney Plus, and they put it behind a smaller paywall, thinking, oh, well, you know, a family of 4 will actually just end up spending the $15 to buy it digitally on our service, like they had to do with something like Mulan, instead of going to the theater and paying, you know, $10, $15, maybe even $20, depending on how many adults are going per ticket. But at the same time, I just don't see a way that they can get out of this situation. It's honestly kind of funny to see, because we have said from the very beginning, since she was cast, there was going to be controversy surrounding this movie. There were going to be certain people who were just not going to be happy. And as she went on and basically said that, oh, I only received backlash because people aren't ready for my iteration of Snow White, things have only gotten worse for her as she's tried to play the victim and says that she's only received backlash for being outspoken. And even if they add this childhood subplot in, even if this rumor is true, I don't see a way that this movie can be saved. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this and of course found it important and informative, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.